Welcome to Rabbit Holes with Aaron. I am Aaron. I'm a 20-year Marine Corps veteran, a potter, a beekeeper, and a few other things. Today, my guest is James West, a friend of about 7 years, and he's a counselor, really successful. And we're just going to go down some rabbit holes today. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, James? Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, that was very kind of you. Yeah, thank you. I'm James West. I started a counseling business in 2022 called Love Stories Counseling, and my wife started a business with me called Dallas Grief Counseling, which I'm also a part of. And I
Good.
do individual couples therapy. I do a lot of betrayal trauma recovery. So that's kind of one of
Okay.
my main specialties these days. Um, I guess like my primary specialty is sex therapy. So I work with a lot of couples and individuals on sexual issues, like in their personal lives and their relationships, trying to figure out how they can make their relationships work when one person wants sex more than the other person, or maybe they got sexual trauma, or maybe it's more of like a sexual identity thing, like LGBTQ issues. So it's kind of it's my bag. And then, the grief side of things as well, like how do you cope with loss and
Yeah.
change.
How would somebody find your services and where are you located at?
Yes, thank you for helping me advertise myself more effectively, Aaron. I'm in Richardson, Texas, and my website is lovestoriescounseling.com or dallasgriefcounseling.com.
Okay.
And you can find the phone
Awesome.
number there if you want to call me up or send me an email. It's all on there.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. So we
Thank you.
talked in advance about what rabbit holes we want to go down today or where we want to start at least. And man, I think you got a juicy topic. You had mentioned kind of hate, fear, and
Hmm.
how, you're seeing a lot of those. And so, yeah, I guess we should define it first. Between you and me, what do we think hate is?
Man, I don't know. So I think hate is it's such a complicated issue. Like psychologically, we often refer to like phobias, like you can think of like homophobia, for
Sure.
example. Like we're afraid of it is sort of like phobia means fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I was actually kind of like reading about where did that come from and but it seems like either there's something in ourselves that we can't accept, and so we project. So
Mm.
I mean, that's common with a lot of hate is that like we see something in ourselves that we don't like in the other person, and so then we reject it.
Yeah. Well,
But then
just
there's
like,
also, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just like, for example, like a homophobic guy because he is has some latent
Sure, maybe he's
homosexuality or
secretly
something.
in the closet
Right.
or something.
Right.
But I don't think everyone who's homophobic is secretly gay or something, you know?
Right. I'm not saying that, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying that could be an example.
Yeah,
Good
yeah, yeah,
point. Good
yeah. I
point.
just wanted to clarify that because I think there's another place that hate can come from is it's less about something that you're projecting and more about something you just don't understand and that you
Mm.
don't identify with. And so that's
Yeah.
where we get this sort of like in-group, out-group phenomenon. And like
Okay.
if you're not in my group, then I hate you. Maybe it's
Mm.
also like I'm another example of just fear. Like I'm afraid of you because I don't understand you.
Right. Well, and that makes me think of something I read in a book by Jordan Peterson. I think it's 12 More Rules for Life, his second 12 Rules for Life book, and he talks you know, pushing into the unknown. And anybody outside your group, and your social circle is unknown. We're a little bit afraid of the unknown. So, I mean, just to think about that for a second. But yeah, in group, out group. I've never even heard that terminology before you
Mm.
mentioned it.
Hmm. Yeah,
So, go ahead.
I think that like the issue of like sort of the antidote for it is like empathy and love and acceptance and maybe like either I think a big part of it is self-acceptance, like accepting, especially in the example of like where you're projecting something you don't like about yourself onto someone else.
Yeah.
But then there's also just more like the empathy factor of like, even though I don't totally understand that, like, um, maybe I can find something about it that I appreciate. Uh, is it harming me? I think a big part of why people hate something or someone is because they perceive it as harming them or infringing on their rights in some way.
Okay.
Uh, like I feel like a lot of like people who are against like gay marriage, for example, they feel like it's,
Yeah.
sullying, dirtying the waters of like what the marriage is supposed to mean or something like that. Um,
Okay.
but like I think marriage could fulfill a lot of different purposes in life, and like, if you don't understand it, then you're gonna hate it and be afraid of it. And so I think it's sort of like the antidote is like how do we improve empathy in our world? I really feel like this issue of like hate and fear is the root cause of basically everything that's wrong with our
Yeah.
world right now.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think about this a lot. I don't really like I think about it a lot and I don't really know what to do with it. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
there's a solution. I don't but like I think about it a lot. So you wanted a rabbit hole with me? Let's rabbit
Yeah.
hole, baby.
Yeah. Let's think about this. I mean, hate has been near and dear to my heart for quite a while now. As ironic as that seems, like just understanding it and finding it within myself and just trying to
Hmm.
fix it within myself towards other people and towards myself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I totally relate.
yeah, so we're trying to solve this, yeah, instead of, and maybe solving the problem inside of ourselves help solve it outside. I don't know, but let's just take a look at hate and think about, for myself, the areas where I have found I hated myself. The solution there was, well, responsibility pie was part of the solution, realizing that I'm not the only one responsible for myself being in the middle of whatever I'm in the middle of. Um, you know, what are some other people responsible? Well, government, society, my parents, my grandparents. There's a lot of people involved in the identity of who I am, and most of them I don't
Yeah.
have a choice about. Right? I mean, I was born here, in America, um, to the family I was born to. I didn't even get to pick my name, as with all of us. I didn't get to pick my body style. It wasn't like an MMO at all. It was like I got no choices. It's like, here's your random
Hmm.
character. Good luck with everything. What am I good at? We don't know. Figure it out. And
Yeah.
so we're kind of just born into a sandbox with a network of people that we is usually dysfunctional at some level. And it's like, here, solve the puzzle. It's an ultimate hero puzzle
Hmm.
where you find your way, you discover who you are, you discover your truths, and at some point, like, you get this. I mean, I think that's the biggest part of becoming a hero is acceptance of who you are and your skills. Like,
Knowing yourself, like being able to identify this is who I am,
well,
and no one can take that away from me.
exactly, and you can't accept someone you don't know. I mean, it just can't happen, right? I mean, we can be accepting of strangers and people we haven't met yet, but we have to meet them. know they exist. And so it's kind of like as we are revealed, you go through life, you don't get very far, and you realize there's some things that aren't really helpful going on inside of me. They're not helping relationships. They're not helping other people. They're not helping me with my ambitions and making money. Everything's there's a lot of things working against me. And when you recognize those things, then you can say, okay, well, where do these, you can start the process of where do these things come from? How did I get not only these strengths, but these weaknesses, and now how do I make any forward movement at all in my life, and it really comes down, I think, acceptance, as you reveal yourself, your acceptance of yourself, and not just the pretty parts, the ugly parts, the shameful parts,
Yeah, the parts you're still working on or the parts you haven't figured out yet.
under construction, right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's so many ways to go with this. But fear, man, whew, if you haven't experienced fear,
Yeah, tell me
then,
about fear. I bet you've experienced some fear like most people haven't.
oh my gosh. Well, and let's talk about fear, because fear is the thing that stops you from doing stuff, right? It's to keep you from doing stuff, keeps you from meeting these new people in other groups, other ethnic
Mhm.
groups, other country
Okay.
groups, so to speak. And so, like,
Sure.
fear is an isolating thing. And, science is now proving, of course, marketing knows this very well, that, we'll avoid missing out at a larger percentage of the time than we will, worry about avoiding extra or a bonus or more,
Mm.
or abundance. So we're so afraid, well, and they have an acronym now, FOMO. Fear of
Okay.
missing out drives so much stuff, right? It's in every
Hmm.
commercial. It's in, well, you need our paper towels. Well, why? Well, look at how
Yeah.
happy we are. I mean, the kids are getting along with the parents are getting along with the kids, nobody's drinking, but look at how happy we are with Bounty paper towel or whatever, and you're like, man, I want the happiness, so I'm going to get the paper towel, because we
Some
don't want to
bounty,
miss
man.
out on that. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm just egging you on. I want that bounty paper towel now that you talked about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
what?
gonna make me happy.
Yeah, they don't give me any money. I should have just made up a name for the paper towel.
But I know what
um,
you mean. It's like you see people in media that have something. So much of social media actually is revolves around the preying on people's fear
yeah,
that like they don't have enough, they aren't enough, they're not happy enough. You're constantly comparing yourself to the Joneses over there who are smiling in all their photographs and they have this lovely house and um, they went on this beach vacation or whatever.
yeah,
Or, uh, just like the accomplishments. A lot of people go on social media to talk about their accomplishments. Look what I did.
yeah.
Um, and then if it's not that, then it's an ad for like clothes that you could buy or like this gizmo that you don't have that's gonna solve a problem you didn't even know you had or
That's going to
whatever. There's
elevate
this
your
constant,
lifestyle. Yeah.
yeah, unrelenting FOMO.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see how far they can push FOMO. And then when it just the bank breaks and people are like, I don't even care anymore. You're like, I don't care if the next door neighbor has a Lexus, where they push it
Hmm.
so far, because there's a certain point I feel when I'm manipulated or coerced past a point when I'm like, enough is enough. Stop.
Oh yeah,
Right.
like I'm tired of hearing this Lexus commercial. I will never buy a Lexus kind of
Right.
attitude. No, I'm not watching that show because you've advertised it 40 times over the
Yeah.
last 3 episodes of whatever I've watched, so I'm done.
Well, and it's even greater than, I mean, that's a good example. Like, I paid for no ads on Amazon or whatever because I got tired of watching these crazy drug commercials, like of how it'll
Hmm.
just it'll help you in one way, but it almost kills you in every other way. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't even want that in my subconscious rolling around, just listen,
Yeah.
no, and it works
Uh-huh.
so because I paid for no ads. And so I'm like,
Yeah, they got you.
they're using the fear of missing out ads to get me to pay for no ads. So man, they're geniuses, right? I mean,
That's pretty wicked, yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I guess one of these days I'm just be like, there's nothing good on here. Just stop all my streaming services. And they're going to be like, it didn't work. Stop. We're not going to use fear of missing out on this guy anymore. He's obviously, by that time, there's no going back, right? It's just like, I don't need it anymore. I'm too busy doing meaningful and important things. I'm too busy, not me, but not just me, but anybody can be like, well, you know what? There's people out there. And I've come to find out that people are amazing, right? And I can have relationships with them. And if I'm a cool, nice, accepting, forgiving, and patient
hmm
person, people like me. That's kind of been the latest season of my life. I was just shocked and surprised. I'm like, how many good friends do I have now? I'm like, oh my gosh, I got like 20. How did that happen? I was
I
sick
think
and
you're
lonely.
like you just you focus your attention on connecting with people and
Right,
over trying to like get something out of them or
right.
you know, um I feel like so much of my 20s was like I just felt really insecure all the
Yeah,
time. And I had a really hard time making real connections. And I think like around when I turned like a little bit before I turned 30, I kind of turned a corner and like we were talking about earlier, I figured out, okay, I think I really know who I am now, and
yeah,
no one can take that away from me. And suddenly I didn't really need a lot from people anymore.
yeah,
I mean, I was still looking for company and I was looking for love and I was looking for friendship in that new season of my life, but I just wasn't as desperate.
yeah,
I wasn't like as afraid, and I would just focus my attention on connecting with people, and I'd walk out of those situations with too many friends, to be honest.
yeah. Hey, wait a
Yeah,
minute.
like
Are you talking about me? No, I'm just kidding.
no, I'm
I know.
not.
I'm just playing.
Yourself, present company not included.
Oh, okay.
But there were a lot of people I met just like kind of table crashing at bars. Remember, I used to do that a lot,
Yeah,
and I still keep up with like one of those people, but like I met a lot of people that like I ended up not really being friends with long term. Not because they weren't good people or whatever, just because I just had too many friends. There's too many people to invest in.
yeah. Too many friends, not enough time. But yeah, I mean, you said some things that opened up new rabbit holes for us to
Okay, all right,
explore.
I like this.
Okay, so the new thing you said was,
Tunnels.
I'm wondering where insecurity and fear intersect. Because
hmm
I know insecurities seems like they're a lot about fear. So let's think about
hmm
that. I mean, I've had insecurities. Who hasn't had insecurities? Maybe Elon
Everybody has.
Musk.
He's a brilliant investor. I like the guy's investments.
There you go. I appreciate you bringing it back to giving him something back. But yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk about fear and insecurity. So think about that for a second. Do you got anything coming to mind?
Uh,
Well, let's go back
you
to
mean like
the
in my personal life?
well, let's go back to what you were saying a second ago. You were like, I
Okay.
was looking for approval. I was desperate. So when
Sure.
you said
Desperate.
that, I was like, fear, 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 fear
Uh-huh.
of, fear of
Being
not
alone.
of being alone, fear of being rejected, fear. Not necessarily these all
hmm
fit you, but these fears kind of come together in ways that are make us tear apart who we are in a way of it being insecure. And now when somebody
I
says
think, yeah.
something, go ahead.
Well, then it's easy to prey on it. Is that where you're going with it?
No, but
It's
you can
easy for
go
someone to
there.
manipulate and take advantage of it.
Yeah, it does open a door, and a lot of people see it and feel it
hmm
at a subconscious, nonverbal level. Like I've been taken
Right.
advantage of so many times that way because just like you and maybe like everybody, when we're younger, we're a little bit more insecure. We're a little bit more vulnerable. And, I'm like,
Hmm.
here, I'm going to give you everything to have a relationship with me. Here you go. And they're like, they step on it and they crash it on the ground. And then they're like, how much money do you have? And they take it from me and walk away. And I'm like, wow, that didn't work the way I expected. Like I built the
Hmm.
bridge of friendship for you. Why don't you, all you have to do is walk across. And they're like, I don't know who built that bridge. It wasn't me. I'm not going over there. And so my desperation and my insecurity just kind of, what do they call that? Self-fulfilling prophecy of not having people
You know
come
what?
into my
That's
life.
you're describing something really curious because I was talking about earlier how like the antidote to fear is like having empathy.
Okay.
And but I think that there's actually another part of this that why this is such a rabbit hole for me is
Hmm.
that empathy is not always healthy to have,
Okay.
which is a bizarre concept. Like there's this episode of Invisibilia about an incel that they interviewed. Are you familiar with incels?
Nope.
Involuntary celibate people.
Okay. No.
It's just like it's a community of men who feel entitled to um sex basically, and they're not
Okay.
getting it, and so they feel like they should. They're mad, they're angry,
Sure.
they're hateful actually. And so they talk about this idea that like maybe over empathizing with someone like that is not a productive thing to do because we've been given this idea about empathy that it's always a healthy thing to do. It's an inherently good thing to empathize. But like if you're empathizing with like neo-Nazis or something, then
Hmm.
maybe there's something not so productive about that anymore. You're
Hmm.
for in your example, what you're telling me about like you gave and gave and gave, and then they just took and took and took.
Right.
Like I've been in situations like that, and the reason why I found myself in that situation, sure, I had all these insecurities, but I really loved and believed in the people that I was
Sure.
supporting who took advantage of me.
Yeah.
I understood them. I understood them almost like, that was like my downfall was that I
Right.
was too understanding. I was like, well, they're
Hmm.
just like that because they've been hurt, they have trauma or whatever. And I can understand where they're coming from, but then I'm accepting an abusive relationship.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. That's some really deep stuff for sure. I mean, yeah, I was thinking about empathizing and empathizing too much and what you're talking about, and it takes me two different ways. One way is it takes me towards codependency, over giving, over taking,
Hmm.
over sharing, over empathizing, where you empathize to the point where it's like, well, I understand why you did that. You've had a hard life. I'm sorry you had to blow five holes in me, but I completely understand.
I get it.
I get where you're coming from completely. But I
Yeah.
think it's kind of like that's like faux empathy, right? It's like
It's
fake
not really
empathy.
empathy. Is that what you're saying?
It's like shallow empathy. Like if you really look and empathize with them, you're like, wow, you must be miserable. Like to be in that spot, to be taking and taking and never get what you want, you must be miserable. And so if you can really see how they really are down deep, that's empathy. Like this
Hmm.
instant forgiveness. Oh, that's a wonderful codependency trick that I'm a black belt in that. I mean, I've given the black belt back. I don't do it anymore. Now my black belt is in, you know, well, I mean, I'm gonna dodge it a little bit, do some kung fu moves like sidestep, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, you look like you're really hurting. You don't want to
Uh-huh.
talk about it, like I just talked to a lady at a little store in the mall yesterday. She was crying and she was at the register. She was working there and she's blowing her nose. Her nose was red. Her eyes were red. I'm like, what's going on? Are you okay? And would you like to talk about it? And she ended up talking about some people that died in her life recently. And I was just like,
Mm.
wow, thanks for sharing that with me. She's like, well, thanks for listening. And she was like, I'm sorry I'm crying. I'm sorry I'm crying. And I was like, no, we accept all emotions. Talking about me and my wife, and she was
Uh-huh.
shopping in the store, but I just noticed this lady. But like that's empathy. It's not like, wow, you're definitely sad. Well, everybody can see that, but what's going on down deep, and then, well, and then there's 10 layers down, right? And that's empathy. And then there's 20 layers down. And then, who knows how far down we are as people, like when you're really digging into our subconscious. And so, yeah, that seems like it looks
Well,
like empathy.
codependency,
Go ahead.
you're talking about poor boundaries when it comes to codependency.
Sure.
So, like at some point, I guess you set a boundary. That's the new jujitsu
Yeah.
that you're describing, where you're like, okay, like that's enough empathy. Now I have to go live my life.
Yeah. Well, it's a super secret move. It's actually
Oh yeah.
given in the book Codependency No More.
Uh-huh.
It's the mass. It's like the in Karate
Melody
Kid,
Beatty.
the crane kick, in Karate Kid, where he's like lifts his arm up and he swaps feet, knocks the guy out. It's that level, and it's one question.
Uh,
It's one question, and when I say it, your probably light bulb's going to come on. It's already been on. The one question you ask somebody codependency to set the boundary is, how would you like me to help? And it takes apart the whole broken pattern. How would you like
mm,
me to help? Because they're expecting you to just step in and help without being asked. So when you ask, it breaks apart the whole thing. And it says, that's your problem over there, and my problems are over here. And how can I help you over there? And it's like,
mm,
well, I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to ask for help. What do you mean? Because then they would have to take responsibility for how they feel, and so it really just it's a disconnect. And I've told so many people about that, and I've tried it, and it's worked every time. It doesn't seem like it'll work, but it's
mhm.
like it's that level of ninja move that like it looks just like a normal move, but when you say it, the other person, the overtaker, is like, huh.
Yeah, to
I,
someone who like takes and takes more than they probably ought to, that is a very disarming question.
yes. Hiya, right? You just you just gonna sidestep them. They're like, I'm using my best. I'm gonna push all your buttons. They got their whatever their palm move, and they're coming to push all your buttons at the same time, and you're gonna react and give them stuff. And it's like, and you just like you dance out of the way, you push their arm away, and you're like, oh, here's the question I got for you, and they're like, ah, I don't know what to do. Anyway, it's like a kung fu movie.
Well, I think it would work, but then at a certain point, it kind of starts to fall apart with like if you're in a truly abusive relationship, for example, like
Sure.
how would you like me to help? Then they're gonna probably give you 1,000 things to do that won't really matter,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
So
I
I mean,
guess that's a special. It's like it really is a kung fu move because you got to do it and walk away. And it's like,
yeah, you still got to be willing to say, oh, well, that's not really something I can do, right?
yeah, well, I want you to fix all your issues and fix this relationship. And it's like, oh, well, I'm glad you said that out loud because that's impossible. Goodbye, whatever. But
So with rabbit holes, I gotta say, like, uh, I want to trace our steps for a sec because
do it.
I'm like, how did we get here?
Well, I've been writing down
Do you do
notes.
that?
Yeah. So
You're good. You're
we
good.
went from
Okay.
hate to fear. From fear,
Uh-huh.
went to insecurity and desperate. And then from there, we went to
Uh-huh.
empathy and being too empathetic. And then we
Okay.
took that down to codependency and also
Codependency.
like deep empathy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so any of those rabbit trails, we can go back to any of those rabbit holes and just pick up there and go down a different trail if you want. We can go
Mm.
back all the way to fear and hate because hate's got a lot of stuff. I mean, hate's a whole network of rabbit holes, and it is tied to fear. I always thought that, well, in my earlier life, I thought that love and hate were just opposite. Thanks for listening to our podcast. We'll be right back in a minute, but first I want to tell you about some new exclusive access on our Patreon. So if you join as a member to Patreon, you can get access to Give Us Rabbit Holes through an exclusive Discord chat room. Also, we're going to be airing exclusive for Patreon member only episodes, full episodes. Let's get back to the program. But now I've come to think that hate is just, well, love is just the absence of fear. And hate is just listening to
Wow.
every fear.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
Wow. Yeah, that's a really beautiful way of putting it. I can't say that I've thought of it that way myself. Like, I guess like maybe I have, but yeah.
Well,
Thanks,
and
Aaron. That was a good light bulb moment.
well, I can't claim credit for that because I actually got it from the Bible. It says perfect love casts out all fear. And I
Mm,
got to think about that, and I got to think about how, you know, not being afraid allows you to love fully and completely. And it's crazy because it would think that you'd be entering into a codependent relationship with every single person you meet. Like, I love you, so I've got to lay down and let you get through the mud by walking on my back. And it's not the way it works at all. As a matter of fact, it seems to work like a force shield. So the more I love
mm,
myself and the people and everybody I meet, the people that hate, I don't know what happens, but they never even get to me. I don't know. I might run into them somewhere, but I treat them like with love. And you treat them, and I think Jordan Peterson taught me this, but you
they're just
treat
like
them,
repelled by your love.
yeah, they're either repelled or they're drawn in and they're treated so much better than they feel like they deserve. And so it puts them
Mm,
in a situation of grace where they're just like, well, I'm gotta demand so much more than I'm getting, and I gotta really beat people up, and I gotta maybe cuss at people and coerce and manipulate, gaslight to get where I want to go. But when somebody comes in above them and loves them and treats them like they're a good person, then they're like, wait a minute, I like this space. This is great.
hmm
Hey, wait a minute, I'm gonna fight you and I'm gonna get what I want. And I'm like, what do you need? Well, I was gonna ask you for money. I'm like, here's $100. Oh, so or whatever, or here's a bus ticket. Where are you going? Or can I give you a ride? Or and so it's just flexibility and this availability, but that's all founded on I think everybody deserves love just like I deserve love myself. And so I love myself the way, well, we're going to get back into scripture again with the golden rule. Treat others as you want yourself treated. It's paying it forward. And but it can't go that it can never go that way. It can never go you do the good thing and you feel good. It always starts inside of me. For me, it starts inside of me. Like, I treat myself nice. I reward myself for accomplishments, small ones, and I treat myself like a good person. I give myself good, healthy food. I take myself out to run. Well, that's almost like punishment, but it's still it's
Well,
giving a
it's a
gift
tough
to my
love.
it's giving a gift to my future self. Like, here's some muscles and here's some
Hmm.
cardiovascular health and some better thinking and clearer mind. Here you go. Elderly
Or
Aaron.
treat others like you'd like to be treated, you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
tough love is a big part of that, I think. Like, I want people to be straight with me. I want people to help me in ways that actually help me, not just enable my bad habits or poor behavior.
Yeah, pat me on the back and give me a bottle of whiskey for my alcoholism or whatever. It's like, well, I just want you to feel better temporarily. I don't care about your
Hmm.
long-term health, you know. But I hear what you're saying. I
Sometimes you
mean,
got to go for a run to do the best thing for yourself, even if it sucks.
yep.
Sometimes you got to say, no, I can't help you with that bus ticket. Or you wanted money? Yeah, sorry, I can't help you with that. And sometimes that's the love that
Yeah.
person needs.
Right. Well, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody explain to me why they need a lot of money, and I'm like, man, I'm sorry about that. You know,
Hmm.
how can I help? Because I do have limited money. As
Right, yeah.
everybody
Hmm.
does. I mean, as everybody does. Like, if I'm just going to start handing out hundreds, well, I'm going to be needing to find something to eat next week, without money. So but we balance it out. But that's the other beautiful thing about loving myself, or a person loving themselves. Let's just not use me as an example, because I'm gonna fall off the pedestal really quick. But like loving yourself, it sets you up so that you know what you need. I know what I need financially. I know what I need to eat. I know what my plan is to go to California, and I know what I need to get there. And and I've been responsible about it. And so that leaves me what I have left, and what I have left is what can be used to help other people. But I'll tell you, the most priceless thing I got, I give away all the time, every chance I get, myself and my time.
Hmm.
I mean, I like to, instead of throwing money at problems, which is everything that's wrong with the world, I throw myself at the problem. Like,
You're
what?
generous with your attention.
Right. My time and attention and the listening,
Mhm.
and I think, I don't know, it just seems to be working. So, but that's opposite of hate. So it's like you learn to accept yourself. When there's something about insecurity and hate and fear, about and empathy, really is putting
Mhm.
yourself in another person's shoes. And,
Yeah,
go ahead. Tell me.
I'm having kind of a light bulb moment here. Um, I'm a trauma recovery therapist, so like the vast majority of what I do is, like, oh, that you have this kind of surface level problem or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, probably it's because, you've been through some kind of difficult situation in your life that
Right.
is informing how you feel now.
Right.
And I mean, that's not the case every time. Sometimes it's like, you gotta, you need to really get a new job, or
Right.
like,
Right.
or you need to get a job, or you need to like be focusing on your hobbies or something like that. Because you're obsessing over something but anyway, a lot of the time it's like there's this trauma piece. And so, um, I always like, we talked about forgiveness earlier too. So it's kind of been rattling around in my
Okay.
brain throughout our conversation. Like, how does forgiveness fit into all this? And it reminds me of this book. It's called Trauma and Recovery by Judith Herman. And it's
Okay.
like one of those seminal psychology counseling books that, like,
Okay.
yeah, I think it was written in the 80s or 90s. I don't know. Well, before I ever started studying any of this stuff.
Sure.
And she says, surprisingly, the research indicates that to recover from trauma, like if somebody abused you, for example, you don't have to forgive the person to recover, which is like a pretty, I think it's a pretty controversial thing to say.
Sure.
And, but I think she's not saying that like forgiveness isn't valuable,
Right. Of course not.
but, and what she does say though is that forgiveness often will just sort of end up happening, but it doesn't have to happen for the person to recover from their trauma, for them to no longer be for them to be able to manage like their triggers more effectively, for example. So what usually leads to forgiveness in people is feeling sorry for the other person.
Hmm.
Like you build empathy eventually, once you get past all the anger and the feelings of betrayal,
Sure.
then you can it's easier to get to that place of like kind of just feeling sorry for this person that must be so miserable, like we've been talking about.
Right.
Wow, you must be miserable, that kind of attitude. And then you pity them, and your anger tends to kind of melt away. Your hatred for this person is dissolved by feeling sorry for them.
Hmm. Yeah. It's
And
kind of,
then
yeah.
sometimes that leads to forgiveness.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of like the opposite of gratitude. I mean, but anyway, you look at somebody else and kind of do some math on what they've got going on and what they have, which is gratitude. Make a list of the things you have, and you'll run out of paper. But make a list of the things that someone else doesn't have, and
Hmm.
you're putting yourself in their shoes in that way, and you can empathize with them.
It's
Yeah,
really hard to get there though. Like it's so hard. And sometimes I'll have clients that come to me and they're like, they feel so ashamed about how much they hate
yeah.
their abusers.
Well,
And they wish they could get to that place of, feeling sorry for them and no longer being angry. Or then some of them are just like, no, F that. Like I deserve to be angry at this person for the rest of my life. And, they're very resistant to this idea of letting go of their anger because it's something that they sort of identify with, they identify with
yeah.
being angry at them is what makes me me.
Wow.
Because it's good to be angry to have boundaries. You need anger to have boundaries. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of shame around not being able to get there too. So I wanted to name that.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. I mean, I have so many alternate thoughts,
Hmm.
not contrary thoughts, but just like from my own journey, I had discovered. Well, and here's something about forgiveness, right? I mean,
Yeah.
let's talk about forgiveness just for a second. Like something about forgiveness is if the person did nothing wrong, then there's nothing to forgive. And then you can try and forgive them all day long. You're just directing forgiveness at the wrong target. Well, the other thing about forgiveness is it's
Mm.
drinking, or not forgiving is it's drinking the poison and hoping the other person dies is one metaphor for it. And
Uh-huh.
so in this situation,
Right.
like the only path to forgiveness that I have found, and I just haven't went down the empathy path yet, but the only path to forgiveness I found was recognizing my responsibility in the situation.
Sure. Yeah.
And my responsibility. For instance, I'll give you, as a child, neglected at some level. It was traumatic at some level because it was pulling the strings and calling the shots of my adult life in relationships. And so as I did some psychotherapy and some EMDR and stuff, we got to this stuff and I found out I was mad at myself. And I was like,
Mm.
well, why are you mad at me? And I was sabotaging myself, talking bad about myself. These were some of the symptoms I was experiencing. And I trace it back, and in quiet moment with myself, I was like, man, it just seems like you don't like me very much, Aaron. And I'm like, what are you upset about with me? And you will wait for answers all day long or for weeks or months, and eventually you get one here and there. And, it told me it's like you
Hmm.
betrayed me. You
Yeah.
sat
You
there and
you let me
watched
down.
you sat there and watched when your parents treated you wrong and you just took it.
Mm.
And I had to forgive myself. And then my parents, after that, like there was nothing to forgive. And,
Mm.
so often we're the guilty party and we're really the only guilty party we can punish. You can go and, take something out on somebody, or you can, think bad thoughts about them and slash their tires in secret and all this other stuff to get back at them,
Hmm.
but they're not going to know what's going on. But here's the target. Here, I'm pointing at myself. Here is the target for every responsible choice that I've made in my life. Maybe I made it in fear, or maybe I made it under coercion, or maybe I made it to survive. But it was not, whatever the choice was, all comes back to me. If I'm unconscious, well, I have no responsibility. I have no choice there. Maybe what got me unconscious, if I drank, 3 12 packs and I lay in the middle of the road and something happened to me, well, I'm kind of a little responsible for that. But if I'm sleeping at night and the plane crashes on me, and I survive, wow, I'm really going down that rabbit hole all the way with one arm and one leg or whatever, and I can be like, well, you know what? Sometimes bad stuff happens to people. I shouldn't have went to sleep there. Or, we can continue to blame ourselves. And it's funny because we're drinking the poison to kill ourselves, and it does work. Our cortisol
Mm.
levels raise. Our body, all the dopamine and stuff goes down as our cortisol levels from stress go up, and our body falls apart because it's not meant to operate under that much stress. And we
You
really
mean like
are.
being angry at your parents was like killing you, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, I no, not well,
No.
not directly,
Okay.
but being angry at my parents, I was drinking the poison, but really I found I
Hmm.
was the one, I was holding myself responsible. Now they had some responsibility too. I mean, they're my
Okay.
parents, they're adults, you know,
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the tricky, slippery slope of
right.
this is that trauma survivors almost always take way too much responsibility. And so that's, it's hard to tell someone, well, you just
Mm,
got to take responsibility for what's yours
right.
because their barometer for what their level of responsibility is like kind of broken by like having
Mm.
been treated so poorly by so many people.
One, I think, and you're probably familiar with responsibility pie, but for the listeners, it's like you make a circle and you cut,
Hmm.
just like you make slices of pie, you cut it into pieces based on responsibility. And at first, when you look at the pie, when you're first thinking about it, it's like Aaron is responsible, right? Aaron across the whole pie. 100%. I was the
Or a little
one,
sliver was them or something.
right? Maybe, right. To put it back in
Maybe if you're
perspective.
lucky.
I mean, I thought I was responsible for every wrong thing that happened in my life at some
Okay.
point, right? Concrete
All right.
thinking. And then we grow up a little bit and we're like, well, my parents, they're the ones that are responsible, all the way responsible for me, right?
Okay.
And so we get the a developed, mature, and healthy responsibility pie shows a lot of factors. And the
Okay.
more slices you cut the pie into, the smaller slice everybody gets. And all of a
Yeah,
sudden I
their
go,
parents,
right,
our society that we live in, like
correct, right.
just
And yeah,
circumstances or
so
whatever,
yeah. So and I hear what you're saying about trauma survivors that were abused, and they're already saying it was my fault. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have been in that household as a 12-year-old or whatever the case may be. Just speaking in
Mhm.
generalities, but but it come but as you look at it and do the responsibility pie, I've done it with veterans a lot of times, and they're like, if
Yeah.
I would have zigged instead of zagged, my whole team of five
Hmm.
people would still be alive, and I'm like, let's just
Bargaining.
let's draw a pie here. Let's draw a pie and take a
Hmm.
look. Well, so what part does the CEO have in your pie? What about the president and the commandant and, the other people in the fire team? And you get down to where it's like, oh, well, either I wasn't responsible at all for all of them dying, or I was responsible at about 3%. And so I can forgive myself for 3%, right? I can't forgive myself for 100% because I didn't do 100%. So it's like
Hmm.
targeting your forgiveness at the right person, right? And your blame, and the blame is always diffused, right? People could come up, somebody could come up to me and say, I can't believe you did this. This destroyed my life. And I could say, yeah, I can claim some responsibility for that. I mean, it could be on the East Coast. I could be on the West Coast. But, I get a vote for president like everybody else. You know, I'm a part of, veterans, VA disability system. I don't know what my little person does to the numbers. Who I am adding to the numbers, what effect it has on them on the East Coast. But I'm sure there's some effect. So I am partially responsible for everything that happens in my world. So, and I'm not saying I'm 100% responsible for all of it, but I can share, I'll take 1% blame, you know, for somebody being traumatized and abused. I can take 1% blame for that, and I can say I'm sorry. And I can say, I wish I would have known that happened. I would have done anything to change it. And I could be honest the whole time. So I don't know, but we're about 55 rabbit holes in at this moment, and you can draw us. Just pick one. Just
Well,
pick one.
I think that like the lingering question in my mind then becomes how do you get from A to B? How do you get from well really from A to C? How do you get from hate and either taking too much or too little responsibility
Okay.
to a place of um, empathy, acceptance, perhaps even forgiveness?
Hmm. Well, you mean A to Z. I don't know. I mean, no, I'm just
How do
kidding.
you get
It's a
from
joke.
that place and I don't know, but I think that is like the question for
Sure,
so many of my clients. And um I will say that like I don't really know if I could succinctly say the answer, but I think uh being willing to ask that question is a big part of how you get there.
sure.
Being willing to like, how do I get there? Like
Yeah,
I think you said something like that just a couple minutes ago, even like you sort of find yourself someday um,
yeah. The
living
hero's
out the
journey.
answer.
Yeah, the hero's
The hero's
journey,
journey, yeah.
right? That's I think if I remember correctly, narrative counseling, and you're like they write a story about their life, and the hero's
Hmm.
path where he goes through hardship and he gets closer to what he's going for, and yeah, we're all on our own journey. So while I can share some wave tops from my journey to help others, like you're right. I mean, they got to fill in the letters, B through Y.
Mm.
You know, I'm telling them, and in any perspective, talk or conversation, or seeking to be more healthy or seeking to be more mature. It's a journey, and I'm
And I think
sorry,
it's hard. It's like people have to be willing to take that journey too.
and it's
I
scary.
think that's actually maybe like where this conversation started too, at the top of the rabbit hole.
Okay.
What is hate and fear, and like why is that the biggest problem in our world? And I think it's probably because people aren't willing to take that journey for the most part. People
Hmm.
aren't willing to really ask themselves, what am I responsible for versus what am I not responsible for?
Yeah.
And do healing, get the healing that they need.
Well,
And that's what keeps our world so sick.
what do we have? What do we have waiting for us on TV and everywhere we go in life? We have things to be afraid of. We're
More
like,
fear, yeah.
yeah, more fear. Like, if you take that step, what if you come up to something and you can't go any further? What do you do then? It's like, well, you're right. What if you spend your whole life on this journey and then, everything you're put back at step one? I mean, I don't think that ever really happens, but that's the thing about fear. It doesn't use logic.
Hmm.
It's irrational. And
Hmm.
that's the
Hmm.
beautiful thing about it. And,
Thanks for pointing that out.
yeah, it's a powerful motivator. I mean, look at it. I mean, how much money do each of us in America, spend this month on fear of missing out? Billions, easily. That's a
Mm.
small number. And so it's like, then you think about how the government profits from our fear, because the more stuff we buy, the more tax money they get, right? And so it's like all these organizations that are using fear to get what they want out of us. And, and all we got to do, well, how would you conquer your fear? Like, well, I'm
I
going to,
think you have to heal. I think you have to like work on self-reflection and like really figure out what is enough. Like at what point am I enough? What point do I have enough?
those are really powerful questions for sure. Yeah, I'm thinking of step one for people. I'm thinking, your question. Well, let's get to step A first, right? Let's A through, how do we get to Z from A? Well, just a second, what is A? So when I think about A, I think about,
Hey,
yeah, where we start. What do we start with? And what do we start with fear? And something that
good.
was really powerful for me, a book I actually read.
Hmm.
Well, I read a lot of books, so it's not like I actually read a book, but it's like a book I read, actually, maybe the better way to say it, was talking about you let every thought pass by you like leaves on a stream. And you just let them pass by, and every once in a while you pick one up and check it out, and you're like, and these are your thoughts. And
Hmm.
actually, I was going through a really stressful time in a toxic relationship at that time, and it was like all my thoughts were about, you know, working out gaslighting and working out manipulation and working out what part I played and my responsibility. And it's like it was just so much
Mm.
all the time. Like I'd be sitting there with
Yeah.
my fist clenched, like, angry and mad and sad, everything you can feel. And
Hmm.
I started to take these thoughts one at a time. I'm like, okay, well, no, let me check out this thought. What's this thought? Oh, yeah, just break up with her and never say another thing to her. I'm like, okay. And this book taught me to take a look at it and say, well, before I act on this thought, let me see how it aligns with my values. And my values at the time were like being honest and being thoughtful and, considerate, but having integrity and telling the truth. I guess that's three of the words already. But anyway, so I had these values that I kind of roughly assembled of who I wanted to be. And I'd hold up this thought and say, well, if I go shoot her with a shotgun, does this in line with my values? No. Okay. Well, thank you. I understand how you're trying to protect me, thought. I'm going to let you go back into the stream, but I'm not going to act on you. Oh, here's a really good one. Oh, you can give your mom a call. Like, oh, well, that is in line with my values. I like my mom. I love her. She gave birth to me. So I will do that one. And you could think, man, I don't have time for a million. So you got to start somewhere, and I think the place to start is, what I was saying with taking each thought, for a second, taking it for a spin, asking it a few questions. It could be an interrogation, or it could just be like friendly banter. Like every once in a while, I have a stray thought that I'm like, and as you do it, then it starts to just be the way that you do things. Wow, I'm scared. I don't think I can go outside my house. Well, let me see. What's this? What are you here for? I know you're here to help me in some way. What are you doing for me? Well, it's dangerous out there. You could get hurt. Okay. Oh, so you're trying to protect me. Thank you for trying to protect me. But like I have things I want to do out there. So I can't live by you, but I appreciate, and that's what a lot of our thoughts are. There's a part of fear and there's a part of something that is useful that is trying to do for you, that you're trying to control and make happen. It's been my experience anyway.
Yeah.
So what do you think
Yeah,
about
I think
that?
you're right. Yeah, I think you're describing, you're like how we were talking about tough love earlier. Like
Yeah.
you're practicing love with your thoughts, with your own self, and you're doing it with mindfulness. And that is one of the single most effective ways to manage your stress, improve your sense of joy, give yourself a sense of enoughness in the world. Like practicing mindfulness, it's so easy, but it's so hard to do. It's like
Yeah.
there's a really, you were saying that you have a book that you read that was talking like the leaves on a stream. That's a really great metaphor. I love that.
Hmm.
And I love there's this app called Headspace that you
I've
probably
heard
know
of.
about. You've
Yeah.
heard of it. There's a television show on Netflix by the same name, Headspace, by the same company, and
Okay.
they have a couple of shows, I think, one for helping you sleep, and then one just for how to meditate, pretty much. And the first episode, I've watched it like 4 or 5 times. It's a
Okay.
really great, like they tell you about here's what meditation is, here's why it's good for you. Now we're gonna practice it for like the last 5 or 10 minutes or something. And
Okay.
they, instead of leaves on a stream, he describes it as like watching cars pass on a
Hmm.
street in front of
Yeah.
you. Same
Yeah.
kind of idea, right? You can look at them, you can notice them, put them down, and watch them keep moving. And we're like, what's the solution to get from hate to love to acceptance? And I think it is very much this practice. It's making a habit of practicing mindfulness and being willing to like self-reflect, like you were describing.
Yeah.
Is this the best thing to do? Does this align with my values and who I want to be?
Right.
Maybe not.
Well, and I think a beautiful and just, I mean, mind blowing part of that is when you recognize the thoughts and you're aware of them, then they no longer control you without your consent.
Hmm. That's true.
You know, and when you're aware, let's say when you're aware of what, a thing you're an emotion you're feeling, then all of a sudden it's no longer controlling you because you're now aware of it. I'm afraid when I'm in traffic. I wonder why that is. Well, I don't know. Well, I'll start thinking about it. Oh, I'm afraid in traffic again. Well, now I'm going to notice it every time. And now I'm going to notice and I'm going to start noticing why that happens. You know,
Hmm.
and so,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I've
that's,
definitely felt that way. Like crossing a intersection in Denton where we used to live,
yeah,
I'd get afraid there. And then, I thought about it and I was like, oh yeah, that's because someone hit me here a couple weeks ago. So
oh,
every time I go
yeah,
through this intersection, I get afraid.
yeah,
And so I, practiced listening to that fear and okay, let's take a different route home for a little bit.
sure,
And then I practiced, questioning it. Like, well, what if we just, try and go through that intersection, even though we're going to feel afraid? And after I did that, I went back and forth. Sometimes I took the alternate route. Sometimes I went through the intersection to
yeah,
kind of push myself, depending on how I was feeling that day. And
sure,
eventually got to a point where I just could, I forgot about it. I went through that intersection like nothing ever happened there.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's well, maybe we solved all the world's problems. So
Oh my God,
I'm gonna give
no.
you credit. I'm gonna give you credit. This is
Please don't.
well, we need to wrap up now. So I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
besides what is after solving all the world's problems? I mean, I don't even know what. I'm sure we could find other rabbit holes if we wanted to, but
We haven't solved anything because we need people to be doing this work. Otherwise, we're all just going to sit in this world where, because I'm going to say it, that the majority of people are motivated by fear and
yeah,
more than they are by enoughness, abundance, love, belonging, acceptance, forgiveness. People are more motivated by fear. And you can see it in how our media is presented to us and how our politicians talk to us.
right.
It's all fear. It's all fear.
Well, but here's the
But
thing.
yeah, I understand we gotta go.
No, no. I mean, I no. We have time to talk about it for just a second before we go,
All right.
and I would like to say that I think we can throw a pebble in people's ponds. I think we can
Hmm.
send a ripple. I think
Yeah, I think you're right.
I've seen so many people. Well, I mean, we'll take it a little bit further out than inside of me. Me and Jill, we went on a road with an RV. We're driving and seeing all these places. Guess what? A lot of people on our friends list on Facebook decided to try it themselves, right? And
Hmm,
so you have this ability to
that's cool.
influence others by just living your life and loving yourself. And people are like, hmm. And when you do run into people, as fate would have
Hmm.
it, wherever you are in the world, you will run
Hmm.
into somebody and you can look at them and say, are you? And I'll look. It's funny. It's like I work in the stores or something. I'll see somebody that looks like they're kind of lost and doesn't know what they want to do or anything. I'm like, hey, are you okay? Do you need some help? And they're like, yeah, I'm waiting for somebody to come up here and check me out or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I can't help you with that. It just this kind of awareness of other people and
Hmm.
being able to offer, just like the lady that was crying at the store the other day, just like to offer a
Yeah,
little bit of comfort and to throw a little pebble in
a
her
little bit of
pond.
yeah. Just your attention, right? Being generous with your attention, like you were describing.
Well, and it goes back to, I think, something in a previous episode, which says starfish saviors. I came up with that. I don't know, but it's like just picking up one more starfish, throwing in the ocean, right? Like I made a
Yes.
difference for
Yeah.
that one, and I don't know, but if you do that every moment, it does seem like you affect a lot of people. The math
I
is
think you're
there,
right.
you know.
I think you're right. Like Virginia Satir always said that if you could heal one family, you could heal the world. There's this ripple effect of one person becoming healthy. It kind of pushes their entire system to
Yeah,
reorganize itself and to restructure itself in a more healthy way. And like the family system, once a family system is more structured in a healthy way, there's other families that they know that then
Yeah,
have to readjust to meet them where they're at. Um,
I like it.
I think that's why I do my work. That's why I work as
Right.
a counselor, because rather than like as a researcher, because I did work in research for a while, and I felt like I was kind of there was something noble about it. Like I
Sure.
was working on how do we heal dementia, and I liked it. I felt proud of it,
Sure.
but like I was just a lot more fulfilled by my one-on-one interactions. And I think we need both kinds of people. We need people on the big picture level and people on the ground as well.
Sure.
But yeah, I'll
Well,
plug my business one more time.
do it.
lovestoriescounseling.com, dallasgriefcounseling.com. My name's James West, and it's been such an honor and a pleasure to speak with my friend Aaron today about fear, hope, and hate and forgiveness and all those other rabbit holes we touched on.
It was a pleasure, James. Thank you so much for joining me. So good to talk to you again. We'll call you up again because we still got plenty of rabbit holes to explore. But have a good day, brother.
All
Love
right.
you.
Yeah, I'd like that. Love you, Aaron.
Thank you for stopping by and checking out Rabbit Holes with Aaron. If you want more information, Rabbit Holes with Aaron is on Facebook, on Patreon. Check us out. Let us know what you think. Thanks.